Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Pro Wrestling World Talks with Dan and Mac.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to PWW Talks here on Spotify, Apple Music, and on Diamond Podcasting Productions on YouTube, of course. I am your host, Dale Burke, and I am joined, as ever, always, by my compadre, my bestie, my best in the world friend. So many synonyms I could come up with. But he is, of course, Mac. Welcome back to the program, my friend.
Hey, I'll take a CM Punk shout out on that. Best in the world is something. Sure.
Yes, exactly.
I'll take it.
Instead of just best in the world of buffets and beer drinking and that I'm not.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying that
this show has been on less than a minute, and you're just like,
I'm not shitting on you. I'm shitting on both of us because both of us are in the same predicament. Okay, with certain things and the way that we've lived our lives over the years. You know, and now it's maybe not beer drinking now for some of us. It's more other things.
Well, while we were muted doing the intro, I cracked open a beer, so I apologize in advance.
And you know, as always, whatever.
Don't worry. I have not partaken that, but I do have other stuff that I can do that is like that. Stuff like that I also have prepared. So it might get a little wacky tonight, but we'll get there.
Wacky
waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Oh, literally, it is morning zoo radio sometimes on this program where you're
really is.
Whoa, you know, this old same old. And you know, it's we're at that time of year because last week, of course, we were talking about everything that was going on in the world of WWE, especially with our SummerSlam review with our super producer Dave came on and helped us with that. And we talked about the events and everything that has happened in WWE that was going on last week. Of course, Roman Reigns was on SmackDown. He ended up tussling it up with members of the Bloodline and, of course, Solo Sikoa. Jesus. Like it overexposed, I guess you could go with the word on that is. But not only that, we have AEW announcing today. We recorded this on Thursday. They announced today that they will not be going to Wembley next year. They will be going to Texas, Arlington, Texas, that matter. To Global Life Stadium. That is where All In Texas will be taking place next year.
This is why Clown Tony is forever on that slide.
Meaning that now it needs to be reminded that AEW is going into All In a couple of weeks, which last year they trumpeted the fact that it was over 81,000. That's how much that they have projected and sold to the wrestling public. Even Dave Meltzer was towing that line if it was 81,000 at certain points. The government of England has said that it was more like 75. So between 70 and 75. That was the rumors that was just coming out from that. Now, however, with 2 weeks to the show, they have downscaled their setup to about 50,000. So you're losing a third of the house.
Because I'm not booked.
That you had last year. But they will not have 50,000. The latest that I have projections that have been going on is saying that more it could be in the range of 42 to 45,000.
Because I'm not booked.
In a building that is supposedly had over 80,000 in it last year, and also in 1992 had over 80,000 in it last year as well. So few questions I might have. Did my prediction that I made on this program a little while ago, going back, I think, maybe even after WrestleMania, going into May especially, where I said that because WWE had recently announced that their plans for 2026 SummerSlam, where it's going to be 2 nights, and that'll be, of course, in Minnesota in 2026. What is going to happen for 2025? Now, AEW will not be going to Wembley next year for 2025. They have to Global Life Stadium in Texas. So the question is SummerSlam going to be taking place at Wembley Stadium next year on back-to-back nights? Is that the overall question? Is that answer that you all have known for 3 months, at least on this program?
Well, wouldn't it be one night next year? Or
No,
you think they're going to announce it as like
because
2 nights?
Triple H announced during the post-show press conference that this is probably going to be the last.
That's true.
The last one-night SummerSlam.
That is true. You know,
So-
he it's already announced 2026, so that's 2 nights, and it's, you know, where you said it was. But I completely forgot that Triple H said that. That's why I was just like, wait a minute. But I don't know how Tony's gonna do it, man. I don't know how he's gonna do it. Are you gonna go down to like McDonald's and get a combo meal and get a free ticket? Like, I don't know how else he's gonna sell tickets for that stadium. I just don't.
They not only have 40 to 45,000 range for Wembley, where last year, of course, they trumpeted the 80,000. Let's talk about some other really scary numbers, because it's coming up in a couple of weeks. In fact, actually in your own backyard. They will be going back to Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens. First year they did over 20,000.
Hey, guess where I'm not going to be?
You're not going to be there. 2021 they did over 20,000. I think 2022 it was less, but it was over 10, but it wasn't in the 20 range. And I think last year was 8,000. This year,
I thought it was less. I thought it was 5.
It might have been 5. It might have been 6. I don't have the exact.
I don't have it in front of me, but
I actually probably do. I got to pull it up real quick. But I know the numbers. The numbers are like one of those things I'm looking at, and I'm like, well, that's not good. Especially too when. Okay, so this is some scary stuff. So in 2021, 20,177. 2022, 13,800. We were both wrong. 2023, 11,263.
wow. Okay.
2024, 3,442.
Wow. Wow.
And now they're going to be going to Global Life next year, and apparently they're going to do a stadium show in Australia. That has also been heavily rumored this week as well.
The thing is, we've seen this with All In last year. We've seen this with the international shows that WWE has put on, whether they be, just the smaller shows like what was in Japan the last couple of weeks. And obviously the bigger stadium shows like in Australia, the shows in England, the shows in France, and obviously next weekend in Berlin, I'm sure there's going to be a sellout, if not a huge turnout as well. I think there is an appetite for these markets, but AEW isn't doing jack in the States.
No.
So I can't really believe that they're going to go to Texas with the intent of basically your biggest show of the year, let's be real, is All In. And I think it's going to be a really poor showing, unfortunately. No, when you're in like a 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 seat stadium, and it's indoors especially, you can kind of hide the fact that you don't have a lot of people.
You can't. You cannot do it
that
with
stadium.
this building.
No way, man.
This is asinine. It is absolutely asinine on so many levels. This company is in a death spiral. I've always tried to be honest, and I understand that there's a lot of people that are hopeful, that really think that this company is going to be all around for the long. They're in a death spiral. This is the worst I have ever seen a company in the history of the industry, ever. As far as a major promotion is concerned, they are the worst I have seen a company as far as drawing power. And I'm not talking about their shows. Their shows are what they are. Some of them are good. Some of them, I really don't agree with the booking for All In for the main event. I think it's not your top angle at all. I think Bryan Danielson has really lost too many big matches for people really to care. They know that he's going to be retiring, but also too, there's a sense of fear now, I think, with the wrestling audience that really no one wants to talk about, because it's something that I've kind of been in that I've had discussions with people about it, but I don't think I have brought it up to really the attention on this program. This is a situation with Bryan Danielson where you need to have a sit down with him and say, you either have to slow down or I cannot clear you, because you're really looking at a situation where it could end catastrophically for him, the way that he is working. He has already been told by doctors that he is going to have major neck surgery by the end of this year. And you wonder, had he stayed in more of a safer, controlled environment, if he wouldn't have that problem. And I understand that maybe because the fact that certain people are giving him a book and a say, where he might have not really had a say in the other company and things of that nature. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the fact that they kind of treated your wife poorly on the way out, which, sorry, the Bella Twins really don't deserve, I think, a legend status in WWE. They don't. They got their Hall of Fame ring, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that I don't consider them legends. I consider them.
Maybe you should just stop there.
I just don't. I don't consider them legends at all. And I'm sure that there's a segment of the public that watch Total Bellas and Total Divas and think otherwise, which is fine. But at the same time, I don't. I know a number of people that don't. I thought the Bella Twins did more harm to professional wrestling with those shows than anything.
Female professional wrestling, I feel
it set them back for years.
Yeah, that's why I'm clarifying.
It set them back for years, and and also it broke kayfabe. The stuff that I've seen with John Cena, which that did not put him in a good light. There were a lot of things that were done. I think that, of course, a lot of it, it's scripted. Well, whatever. Fine. But it made it look bad. It made the industry look bad. And that was a major reason why I think that the audience wasn't there for the time that it was, because of the fact that they represented something that people really didn't want to watch anymore. And now it was the same argument that somebody had posted today on Pro Wrestling World Facebook page. We'll probably be talking about that. We're bringing back the Scroll. It's going to be a separate show. So I figured I'd make that kind of as a transition because because we will be talking about this topic. So it's kind of a selfless plug because people on YouTube is exclusively to our Spotify and on Apple. So what you're going to want to do is you want to go find Pro Wrestling World Talks, and anywhere you get your podcast from, type us in so that way you can get exclusive content there. So everybody from Diamond Podcasting Productions, be sure to do that now. The link is also in the description for you to be able to do that, because I'm nice in being able to cross promote and, and of course you'll be seeing exclusive content here on Diamond Podcasting Productions as well.
Yes.
This is the only one that really crosses over the main program of Pro Wrestling World Talks, the weekly show where we talk about, which of course on Diamond Podcasting Productions, you would formerly know as The Shoot. But it is, we were talking about that before because I'm like, I just called it The Shoot, which I guess it's more or less at the moment, it's kind of a period of, we naming, it's just, we're that.
So why don't we actually just talk about that real quick? The Shoot will return.
Yes.
It's going to be more of like a timing thing, I feel like, between our other projects.
Yes.
The Shoot might kind of take on a different role, but it will return at some point. More or less, I think it'll be a special than anything else versus our normal content, which will be Pro Wrestling World Talks. And then our other projects on Diamond Podcasting Productions, we're still working out timing.
Yes.
It is incredibly hard to run this podcast and that podcast and now another podcast. So
yes.
There's a lot on our plate, but yeah, we definitely have big plans for both shows at the very least, or both formats, I should say, with the Diamond Podcasting Production channel, at least.
We are trying to establish two networks, really. We're trying to establish what we are here on Pro Wrestling World Talks on the Spotify podcasting kind of on end of things, and then the YouTube kind of things with the Diamond Podcasting Productions. And this is really the only time that we kind of cross the streams a little bit, even though Egon would tell us that's bad.
I was going to say, man, that's bad. Don't talk about that shit.
Oh, God. It is... Because now I got to talk, because now it just brings up Ghostbusters. I think it's either Peter number one or it's either one or two. It's always Peter and Egon fighting it out. I feel like it's your favorite Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
Because yes, Peter had some of the best lines, but Egon, I felt like, had some of the best reactions of just tremendous crucial timing with certain things where it just... and so it's like it's always 1 and 2, and I always put Winston at 3, and then I always put Ray at 4. Ray is always number 4.
See, I feel differently. So real quick, I think those two are also 3 and 4 at different times. Winston, yeah, I feel like has a little bit of an edge for number 3. I feel like
definitely.
I feel like there are times that Ray might have like a decent one-liner in there that brings him back up again. So
Ray does it occasionally, but Ray also was the one who infested Stay Puft and also turned into Vigo in part 2.
When somebody asks if you're a god, you say yes.
Yes. That made Winston a solid number 3 in that position, by the way, because it's just his whole tone and that line delivery was fantastic.
Absolutely.
But God, there's such. I'm never watching Frozen Empire again, though. I need to put that out there. Like Frozen Empire exists in that universe.
I'm gonna give it one more chance, only one. Because I feel that it's a decent story with just the awful last 30 minutes.
Awful.
Last 30 minutes were so anticlimactic, I felt like, that I was just like, what the fuck's happening?
They were never put in a position of danger. And I felt like the whole going into it, I was just like, okay, one of the OGs is done. Like they're making this out to be like this is going to kill one of them, if not 2 of them. And one of them you're thinking is going to say, and then I'm thinking, Ray and Winston will probably sacrifice themselves. Going into it, I thought Bill Murray was going to get killed off. But no, everybody survived.
I
So I'm
thought
just
I thought that new guy was it Kamadi Onjali or something like that. I forget his
Yeah.
name or how to pronounce it even. But yeah, I thought it was going to be him. I thought maybe he would like win and then somehow still end up dying or something like that. Nope, not even
No.
him.
Mm-mm. The guy who
And
sold
then they brought
vapes.
Peck back, and I was like, they can kill Peck, and they didn't kill Peck.
Finally, no, they didn't kill Peck. It was just a very anticlimactic movie. It wasn't like Afterlife, where Afterlife was really an emotional kind of gut punch not a gut punch at the end, because it was really just like
Closure.
It just brought a lot of closure where it was just like, okay, if this is it, this is a proper sequel. This is a proper send off, and I was happy. But of course, you got to go for that fourth, and they did. And fuck, like it's just, it was there was a few laughs in it, not many. I remember in the theater, like back, I was so audibly like, what the fuck am I watching? I think I just came out at one point, like audibly where people could hear me, because Mac and the other guy we were with,
Yeah,
that's how he's referred to now.
Yeah,
the other guy there.
the other guy.
And I just audibly just like, what the fuck is this? And they just started laughing because I was so annoyed. I'm just like, I took off work for this.
We are
like,
we both did, yeah. I remember you just getting up to go to the bathroom, and like, there's a cardinal rule among, I wouldn't say us, but like cinephiles like us.
Yep.
Cinephile. I had to explain this to one of my bosses actually a couple of weeks ago. Like, a cinephile is a lover and critiquer of movies. And she's like, wow, I've never heard that term. And I was like, well, there you go. But as cinephiles, it's like a cardinal rule. It's like, if you're going to the theater, you don't get up to go to the bathroom.
No, you don't.
Watch it the whole way through.
Never.
Unless
very rarely I've done that.
Exactly. And this was one of those movies that you got up and I was like, holy shit. I was like, holy shit. Because that's not you.
Nope.
And you know it. You and I both know that. Man. The viewers now know that too. Like, we do not get up in the movie theater during movies. Like, I must be at the point of like pissing my pants before I get up, because I refuse. I'm seeing it for the very first time. I need to watch it through. And when you did that, I was like, wow, Dan does not like this movie.
Nope. I fucking hated it. Ooh, I hated it. I was like, I was so mad I had to take off work for this. And the more I just think about it, because I'm like, initially I came out with, I'm like, all right, maybe it wasn't that bad. And then the more I started thinking about it afterwards, I'm just like, this fucking thing sucks. Like, all of it. It just fucking blows. You know what? It's just,
You know what it is for me, though? It started decently.
It did. No, it started
the first 30 minutes or so. I was like, okay, this is not bad. But you start pretty within the first 5-10 minutes. You start with a ghost chase throughout New York. Like, that's a perfect beginning.
It is a very good beginning, and then just, but it just was so bad.
Yeah, man.
So bad. And it's just, I'm, ugh. And luckily for them, though, because 2016 exists, it's not the worst Ghostbusters movie of all time.
It's not the worst Ghostbusters movie.
So, I mean, there's that for that. But I just, man.
I'm just going to throw this out there for anybody that hasn't seen it, because it was a long time ago. The Ghostbusters animated series is where it's at.
Oh, without question.
I'm just gonna say I believe, don't quote me, but I believe it is on Amazon Prime. Go check it out.
The box set is also reasonably priced nowadays, folks. For you,
that is very true. Yeah.
For my physical media brothers and sisters out there.
Yes, sir.
Because that community now is going to be the only thing that really keeps it going. Because major retailers nowadays are just like, as far as it goes with that. I mean, that's the hard part. Target now is dropping
you still
it.
see it in some places, but yeah, you're right. Like Target and Walmart, you might find it, but it's very unlikely at this point. And Best Buy pretty much got rid of almost all their digital media. I'm sorry, physical media, I should say, excuse me, at this point. I think maybe they have video games and that's it.
I have no reason to go to Best Buy anymore.
Oh, neither do I.
Like, it's just, that's the sad part. It's like, because I was in there every time, like,
major release, let's go.
yep, fucking there, because they were the cheapest ones, and they always had they were, as far as national retailers are concerned, they were the absolute best as far as movies was concerned, as far as selection, and also too, price.
Though? You know what it was too? It wasn't just those things. It was also the fact that a lot of places, like thinking about games as well, you had to pre-order that shit.
Yeah,
Best Buy always had stock.
Yes,
always had stock. If you didn't pre-order,
always had it.
You went to Best Buy, you didn't need to pre-order or anything. They had it. They had it.
They had really decent pre-order bonuses too. Like they
did, yeah.
They really were competing with GameStop, I think, for that market. And occasionally you see that too. Like they'll still compete really probably around like Black Friday. But that's another thing now that has completely gone to the wayside of just like GameStop's the only place really you can get like a pre-order exclusive. But
I wouldn't say that. A lot of companies are doing their own pre-order exclusives.
That's true.
You know, I'm thinking of like Ubisoft, Square Enix. I think even some of the what is it, Take-Two that does the 2K. They do the parent company of Rockstar, which does GTA and Red Dead Redemption. Like they all have kind of their own pre-order bonuses now at this point. You don't need to go to those places anymore to get that. Now, granted, like some of them might have like additional exclusive bonuses, but you don't even see that as much anymore.
No, it's become well, too, because a lot of that was kind of like disc based. This is the era of like disc based where people actually had to go into the retailer to buy the game, or now you don't even have to.
That is true, but I mean, I would say the last, I don't even know when Amazon came out, but especially since COVID, at least, people are just ordering the games online and getting it shipped to the house, even if they want the physical media. Or to your point, they go digital and they just go on to the retailer themselves, not the retailer themselves, but the manufacturer themselves, if you will. Whether that be Take-Two, I know EA has their own platform. I know Ubisoft has their own platform now. So a lot of these companies, it's just like you just go right to them.
I'm hoping EA after the next. I believe it's I think next year they have a right to be able to extend the contract, but I'm hoping that either next year, after next year, that they are no longer the exclusive rights holder to the NFL games.
God, I hope so.
Madden has been. There's a reason I'm still playing Madden with fucking Gronk on the cover, folks, because the game hasn't gotten any better since. And it's like, well, Tom Brady is still my quarterback, so why do I need to get something else?
It's funny you say that because I remember when it was, what was it, NFL 2K?
Yes.
Like we're talking like 20 something years ago, if not more.
Yep.
And like they were decent games. I thought they were better than Madden.
People still mod 2K5 and still play it.
I'm not surprised at all.
20 years ago, they're still playing a 20-year-old game because that's how bad Madden has gotten over the years. They would rather just mod 2K5 than play the new Madden. It's unbelievable.
It's funny that we're talking about it because I was thinking the other day two different things. One is I really need to start playing WWE 2K24 a lot more than I do. I just have not been gaming a lot lately. But the other one is part of the conversation you and I had with one of our friends who also is a listener that is playing one of the NHL games.
Oh, yeah.
And I think other than 3-on-3, I don't think I've played an NHL game in like 20-something years. I just don't think I have.
Bobby Orr's in the game. I mean, so really, what you could do is you.
Well, thanks for that. I guess I'm going on Steam tonight and downloading that.
Well, what I'm saying is that like, so what you could do literally is this is because I've done this. Is like you
of course you have.
You take
I don't even know what you're about to say, and I know
you take the alumnus players from the Bruins and you put them on the current Bruins. Of course, so now you can have Bobby Orr and Ray Bourque on the same defensive line. And then also, let's say you want to play defense. You're just on line 2 with either McAvoy or somebody else. Just shut off budgets and you'll be fine.
Well, I want to do the creative character too, I think.
Yeah. Career mode's fun.
Yeah, the career mode and the creative character, whatever it is, if not both. But
I think it's be a pro. That's their
something like that. Yeah. I know that he sent us a clip too, and why he sent it to Dan and I is because he was showing us a penalty against his created character, and I might post it to social media because holy crap! Did you see it? Like the dude, like the opposing player, I think he said it was one of the Canadians, just full on like brings a stick and just absolutely home runs his created character with his stick, and it's just crazy. And I remember asking like our friend's name is Johnny. And I asked him, I was like, Johnny, did they throw a penalty on that player? And he's like, nope. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, are you serious right now? He's like, dead serious. So not only in the NHL itself, but in NHL video games, the refs prefer Canadian teams.
That's true. They do. But you know what? Just like in real life if we're playing as the Bruins, the Canadians aren't winning shit. So we don't got to worry about it.
Well, I mean, he was playing I think he was playing as the Ducks, if I remember correctly. But yeah, either way, it's not winning.
I always have to select a team because I don't want to end up in some fucking shithole goddamn franchise. Like I've let the odds play it out. Like I've done it
the Canadians,
or like if you're playing in the baseball Road to the Show and you get drafted to the fucking Oakland Athletics. I'm like, I'm not playing in the Coliseum. Fuck you. Like I'm not doing it. I'm not like it's a digital character. It's not real life. I'm not playing in the Coliseum. Okay.
I'm still not fucking doing it.
I'll play there as a visitor, but I'm not living in Oakland. Fuck you. Oh, we're going to give you the most money. I'm still not playing there. Smoke.
Oh man.
Of course, we went off for this fucking.
Oh, of course we did. This always happens.
But let's revolve it right back now to AEW.
Good, man.
Where to begin?
Well, where to finish, really? Because I think we already.
It's just that's. Because there's going to be some people that's going to say, they can get out of it. All they need is one hot angle or something and something to hit. And it's like, when?
That requires them to actually have competent writers.
They don't have a competent writer. With
decent angles at that. It's not just one or the other. They actually have to write and produce them. I would argue they have one, and it's whoever Mercedes is paying, and maybe they should pay them to do something else because she sucks.
This needs to be said, and I'm sure this might piss some people off, which I really don't give a shit. Mercedes Moné is the worst free agent signing in the history of professional wrestling. As far as big name free agents is concerned, as far as big money contracts is concerned, this is worse than anything WCW did as far as big money deals. Like as far as the Bret Hart deal and that 3-year deal he signed in '97 after the screw job, this makes that look like fantastic. Like it makes it look like one of the greatest deals in the history of like sports, like one of the best contracts ever. Like it's just, you can put it up there with I don't know what's a really good one that's really kind of paid off. Probably CC Sabathia when he went to the Yankees because he won 20 games like 6 or 7 times. It was ridiculous. But or like, you know, Reggie Jackson when he signed with the Yankees and immediately wins back-to-back world champion. You know, as far as the biggest and best free agent deals of all time, this is the exact opposite of that. Like, this makes anything the Red Sox did in the 2010s as far as big name free agents, this makes that anything that they did. Carl Crawford, Pablo Sandoval, it's a couple others I know. I could David Price, a couple of guys,
Don't.
I'm just saying. This goes into the annals of time.
So
with that.
hold on, before you even finish that thought, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you feel, having said that now, do you feel that it might be too early to tell that?
No.
Well then, okay. The only reason I ask is she's really only had like 1.5, 2 feuds, right? Because I don't count Stephanie Quar or however you say her last name. I apologize.
But it wasn't a feud.
Yeah, I don't really think it was. I agree. Hence the half.
Yeah.
I just you can maybe make the argument she's like 4 or 5, but only I feel like one of them, maybe 2, is really involved in an actual match. I think that putting her with Brett Baker, suspension aside, I feel like could make you money, but I'm not invested. No. That's the big thing for me. I'm not really invested in this. And I think Britt, as pretty much an OG, she was the first woman signed by AEW, I think has the potential to be a good match and a good feud, but I'm not confident that they're going to turn around and pull the trigger and have Britt win, which honestly, I think she should if you want this to be a meaningful feud.
Well, I think any chance of her winning was thrown out the window the minute she got suspended.
I don't disagree with that either.
I've seen her promos lately, like that pre-tape she did last week. She's checked out.
I can't say I blame her.
In my opinion, she's checked out. I think that
cornbread, damn it, cornbread.
Yeah, because there's rumors, and I hate to fucking.
Yeah, we don't have to get into.
You know, like I don't want to get into the specifics of the one about Brandy Rhodes and that one, because again, that's just hearsay, and there's no real confirmation of that.
Yeah, if that was confirmed,
it's out there.
I'd love to know if it was confirmed.
Yeah, I'd love to know if it was. It's just that one to me is like, okay, that's juicy, but I don't know how like legit that sounds. But you know, the stuff that happened between her and MJF seems very accurate. His girl did kind of break women's wrestling, the locker room code by going and running to him about everything. But you also shouldn't be that fucking stupid and talk about the significant other of somebody that's in the same locker room, because that just, of course they're going to go to 9 times out of 10, they're going to their partner on that one.
I don't think she's really part of the locker room is the first thing I'll say. I just, even if she's in there, I don't think
probably not. No, that's true.
You know, if she's in there as like a guest, that's one thing, but I don't think she's a part of the locker room, I think is how I should say that. Additionally, in terms of breaking code by him going in the locker room, period, maybe whoever answered the door shouldn't have fucking let him in then. Like, he asked to come in, they let him in. That's not on him. I think you could call it a breach of etiquette, sure, but I mean, whoever opened the door and let him in, that's on them.
Well, then there's the punching of the wall, and then there's more pictures. I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but there are pictures online of
the fist. Yeah, the fist.
No, not the fist, but pictures of his back.
Oh, well, I don't care about it.
Well, the pictures of his back are showing a lot of back knee, which is a symptom of use of HGH, testosterone, and anabolic steroids. So
somebody can tell that to my back knee then, because what the fuck?
Boo ran.
Maybe that's the alcohol too. I don't know, but shit.
I mean, but that, and then of course the moment of rage, him punching the wall, which look, and
The thing
also,
hold on about that. According to sources, he was like way far away from her when he punched the wall, though.
yeah, it was something like
So
down
I don't
the hall
know.
or something.
Yeah.
Like and again, I like that. My thing about it is though, is Britt really had no base being like, they're getting an hour. Yeah, they're getting a fucking hour. And all I'd have to do is just look at her and look at and say, I'm gonna show you the quarter hours that MJF Will Ospreay are in. Yeah, some of our highest rated of the show. Oh, here's the ones you're in the fucking craters. That's kind of a moment where you have to kind of reality check your talent and say, those guys draw, and it's going to be something compelling on television, which it was because it held the audience. The ratings were actually going up during that match. Like, that was a ratings getter for them. It's a fantastic match, and fucking ending sucked, but that's besides the point. But the match was really good. And also for to do that for, which is one thing I got to give Tony credit for, because he's willing to go, I'll put this on for an hour, which WWE does on occasion, but not to the extent I think of what Tony has been able to do. But
the only time WWE goes an hour lately is when The Rock goes over.
Well, I'm just talking about like for
I know.
Like, I think the last one was maybe that gauntlet match in 2018 or 2017 with Seth Rollins when he wrestled like 4 people and he blasted like over 60. It was ridiculous. Like, it was a ridiculous performance. But that was, I think, also another one where people really started to look at Rollins in a different light and all that stuff. But all you have to do at that point is just go to her and say, look, here's why, and show her the numbers. Is it going to be disheartening for that person to see? Probably. But at the same time, you need to also give people a reality check and say, hey, like, these are 2 of my top draws. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're not a top draw. Look, it's,
Boo ran.
and I like Britt. I like Britt Baker a hell of a lot more than I do Mercedes Moné, but Britt also has a bit of a brat. So it's, but you have to put up with that. There's some people I feel like that they're talented enough that they can get away with a little bit. Shawn Michaels did. Shawn Michaels got away with a shit ton, but his talent,
the entire clique did, yeah.
pretty much. But their talent and their success, you really couldn't go against it. And also with the clique, it's like, well, I got my main event scene, I got my mid card scene. They were all in this group that it was like, if you fuck with any of them, your whole show's screwed. So, Britt, and it's tough because I look at Britt and I look at what she's probably going through. And I knew this was going to probably happen when they signed Mercedes, because I knew it was going to poison the locker room and the women's locker room, because she's making probably more than the entire locker room put together.
Probably. I would argue that she's probably making more than 50% of the entire roster, if not more.
Probably. Like, maybe not combined, but like guys,
Well, yeah, not combined, sure, but yeah.
And that is a ridiculous statistic on one sense, but also it's like a major gamble, because now you're tying up all this money on one person that really does not have the track record of doing really any great business. Sorry to say, but it's just
I don't want to say that, but I would make the argument that, and we've talked about this prior, whether it be here or the shoot or separately even. She went to New Japan and she got exposed. And that is such an issue for me that I would not have paid her what Tony Khan has been willing to pay her. And no disrespect to Tony, but I wouldn't have hired a writer exclusively for one person either.
No.
Wouldn't have done any of that.
No. That is because then you're not only paying the talent, you're paying for this writer that, look, there's really, that person really never had a track record. I guess she's friends with Bischoff. So, and Bischoff pretty much is just like, well, she's nice. I don't really want to disperse her.
Great. I mean, she's rated to Snoop Dogg too. What's your point? Like,
yeah, it's
Snoop's not saving her either. Neither is Eric Bischoff going to be able to save her.
It's not good. It's not good. She does not come across, I think, well for either audience. Even a WWE audience, like I think I think they're looking at like Bianca. They're looking at for like Jade Cargill is a much better boss than I think that, and Jade Cargill probably has a quarter of the wrestling talent that Mercedes does, and that's a compliment. I'm complimenting her.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, that's a compliment. But at the same time, it's just, it's Warrior. When I see Mercedes, I see the Ultimate Warrior. And she went there for the payday. I have my own personal issues because of the fact I understand why she left in 3 years ago now? 2 years ago?
2021, I think.
2021 or 2020. I think it was maybe. I forget. It might have been. No, it was 2022. I think it was before because she went to New Japan last year.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And she got hurt.
So, yeah. So, and I understood why she kind of had to leave when Vince was in charge. But as soon as Triple H came back, you should have went back and tried to, and at least work with a different booker. And given him the opportunity to kind of, smooth things over, but you didn't. And you chose to go the route of, well, I'm going to go for the money, and I didn't mind you going to New Japan because it was just like, all right, let her spread her wings a little bit, see how it is. But I also knew you were probably going to get hurt because they work a different style over there. Wasn't the style, it was just the fact of that something got screwed up and you had a freak accident that screwed up your ankle.
Yeah.
Which can happen to anybody. I don't put that on her. Yeah. That can happen to anybody. Look what happened to Adam Cole.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't blame that on Adam. It's just a freak accident. Stuff happens.
But I do blame Rich Holland. I will say that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's his career's done. Like
yeah.
That was the absolute right thing to do, in my opinion, of just phasing him out, or because number one, I don't think he ever had it. And number two, after the Big E thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Nope. Yeah.
Nope. You're done.
I didn't even understand why they were fighting the New Day in the first place, but obviously it was a few years ago, so it is what it is. The one thing I'll say for Mercedes, I think what it really comes down to is a lot of people are sick of her bullshit. I'm just gonna say it that way. Her and Naomi did not need to walk into Johnny Ace's office and drop the belts. They didn't need to do that. They were upset because they felt that the women's tag team championship should have been featured more. And that was a big part of the reason. And then, she takes some time off after this, goes to New Japan, and kind of like you said, it's a different style. I also thought that she was going to get exposed, and she absolutely did.
Oh, I said the same thing. I said she's going to get exposed, and lo and behold, she got exposed.
Lo and behold, she absolutely did. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I will speak to the fact that this is why WWE has writers, because at the end of the day, she would probably not be singing "Mayu Sucks" to the Spider-Man theme, as it were. The injury, like I just said, like Dan said, we don't put that on her. That was a freak accident, and that's unfortunate. It was nobody's fault. And then Tony decided at the tail end of her recuperation that he would sign her to a massive contract that she is probably not worth. And
it wasn't worth the contract the minute she signed, anyways. She's definitely not worth the contract now.
I agree. And like at the end of the day, like I get his reasoning for wanting to sign her, but yes. I don't understand the reasoning behind the amount that he signed her for. I know that in context, especially over the years, especially the early years of AEW, say like 2019 to 2021, we'll say it that way. It was always game changer, game changer, game changer, game changer. Mercedes Moné, I hate to break it to anybody here if you don't know this, but she is not a game changer.
Nobody that they have signed in the last 18 months has been a game changer.
I would make the argument that it goes beyond 18 months, but you're right.
Maybe Ospreay, because Ospreay is a decent ratings getter, but Ospreay has also been featured on that television program before when he was working for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So he's an act that everybody has kind of seen and if you're an educated pro wrestling fan, you know who Will Ospreay is. You didn't even have to watch AEW. You've seen his name. You've seen videos of him at least. I mean, at one point or another, because he's wrestled some pretty big names. I mean, the whole Ricochet thing, which that pretty much became a fantastic kind of review by Cornette. That was one of the things that casual fans really started to get back into Cornette, because he was just like, oh man, they're jumping around and you know what? Fuck both these guys. That kind of got, Cornette more play because of his rants and stuff. That was like one of the first podcasts that he was on that everybody kind of started going to after he did that, because it was so funny. But people know who Ospreay is. They knew that before. MJF is back, and
I mean, if you saw his promo in Rev a couple days ago, he's a real American.
Yeah, I don't like characters who revert back to where they were, and the greats have always been able to kind of make subtle changes at certain points, but still be their character. Taker would change up his look every so often. Shawn would do the same thing. Chris Jericho, even. I hate giving Chris Jericho credit, but Jericho has been smart enough at certain points to change certain things about his look, about what he's wearing, facial hair. Mind you, you do that too, because if you're in this industry, you're in the figure game. So you want to be able to get different looks so that way you can get different action figures made. But that is the fact that MJF kind of went back to being the old MJF. It's like, yeah, that's cool and all, but I don't know. This whole thing with him there now, it's like, it's kind of been there, done that. Like, he's been doing this now for, oh, I get to work with Ospreay. Oh, I get to work with this guy. It's like, yeah, it's cool and all, but don't you think you maybe should have entertained that offer going back over to the E? And because they made their...
Hey, man, look at Naomi. I think that's the perfect example. Look at Naomi. She went back. She went to TNA.
Yep.
She went back to WWE, was special entrant in the Rumble, as was Jordan Grace, which I think helped Jordan Grace to be a little bit more comfortable probably than she otherwise would have been. And they reignited their TNA feud for a few minutes, and then it was off to the races. Naomi has been in WrestleMania with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Naomi has had a world title match against Bayley. She's had great matches with Tiffany Stratton as well. She's kind of back with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill again now. And listen, even if she's not a champion, it's a hell of a run, I feel like. So I don't really understand how some just don't pick up the phone and call WWE and be like, hey, I want to come over, or hey, in Mercedes Monet's case, I want to come back. I don't understand it.
I mean, WWE is probably going to do Lucha Brothers, which that's going to be big. At least for the Mexican market.
Well, look at some of the women talent they've signed too. They signed Juliana. Yeah. They signed Stephanie
Foucault. I know.
And then they signed somebody new lately too. I forget who it was, but
well, they're gonna get Jordan Grace probably too.
Well, I mean that's gonna happen. Yeah, I think as soon as that contract is up, she's just gonna hop the fence and start working. WWE is either in the process or did sign somebody else lately though that I forget the name. It's another female talent, and obviously, you know, I believe in Joe Hendry. Sorry, Dan. He's definitely going to WWE at some point in the near future.
I'm fine with it. Like, you know what? Because I'm cool with it because I think it's look, he's a creative guy. I mean, it's funny how everybody 2 months ago when they brought him in for that battle royal and he got eliminated immediately. I remember telling everybody, I'm like, look, I said they're just testing the waters to see if he's over.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I didn't care. I thought it was annoying, but I knew that was the case too.
They were just testing. That was a test of the waters. It was just like, do they know who this fucking guy is? And they knew who he was.
Oh yeah.
And ever since, it's been, you know, it truly is amazing that this guy is all over 2 different promotions right now in this kind of cross promotion deal.
Yep.
I honestly look at this and I look at what AEW has done with the Forbidden Door for the last, I think this is their 3rd year they did it. I mean, in the last 3 years that they have done that, with all the talent that they have brought in from other promotions that they have hired, has Joe Hendry gotten more play and more over and more notoriety from his little run in the last 3 months from NXT than any other talent that has come out from Forbidden Door that has either worked, either working in other promotions or, I mean, is anybody talking about any of them in the last 3 years? I highly doubt it, just because of the fact you look at how cold New Japan is. Talk about AEW being cold. New Japan is in the same boat. When New Japan needs to look to John Moxley, who's also getting paid a shit ton of money from AEW.
Yep.
A lot of money.
Yep.
And they have to resort to making him their New Japan, the IWGP World Champion. You have to start asking questions.
Maybe they just like blood. I don't know.
And then they put the belt back on Naito, who Naito is not. I mean, that match was not good. Him and Naito was probably the worst match on that show. And everybody's kind of questioning Naito's health, and he's the IWGP. It's a mess. It's just been a giant, like, and it's New Japan and it's AEW. Like, I look at those 2 promotions and I look at Ring of Honor too, because throw that in the mix, I guess, right now. And then it's like you look at Impact. It's like, and Joe Hendry is all over NXT and TNA. You're like, what the fuck? What is happening here? How is he like more of a viral sensation right now than? Because you got to look at the talent. You got to look at like Zack Sabre Jr. You got to look at guys like Will Ospreay. You got to look at guys like Okada. And Joe Hendry does not have the work rate of any of those guys. Yet more people know who he is now. It's amazing.
Yep. No, I agree.
And how all ego Ethan Page a year ago, was an afterthought in AEW. They had to move him back to Ring of Honor at one point. And now he is currently the NXT champion. Like, it reminds me of everything that happened in 99, 2000, and 2001, when you just saw these long-term guys or these established guys that were in WCW, like Chris Jericho, like Benoit, like Malenko, like Perry Saturn and Guerrero, when they all jumped ship and they one company, they were mid-carders, and then they go over to, or afterthoughts, and then they go over to the other company and they're in top spots at WrestleMania. Jericho, I think, won the European Championship at Mania, and the following Mania. Benoit won the Intercontinental Championship the following. Like, all these guys just went on to win like all these championships like immediately after that they signed there. And you look at Ethan Page and he just leaves AEW. He leaves Ring of Honor and everybody's just like, oh, he's an afterthought. Goes to NXT and he's the champion of the NXT brand. And then you look over at SmackDown on who is the undisputed undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes, who was one of the founders of AEW. And he's one of the biggest baby faces in the history of professional wrestling. Meanwhile, AEW cannot get 5,000 people into Arthur Ashe Stadium for Grand Slam in about a month from now.
Yeah. Listen, it's,
wow.
You know, we talked about this on so many different shows about Cody leaving and coming over and being just that much more successful than he was in AEW. And, you know, I know people are like, oh, well, he boxed himself out of the world title. Well, it's like, well, yeah, but Tony is the booker.
Yes.
You know, I know a lot of people before he went, oh, it's his own fault. He locked himself out of the title and stuff like that. But Tony's the booker. Tony came out and said that. So that kind of nullifies that argument right then and there. And, you know, like there are others that are coming over. Like you mentioned, all ego Ethan Page. Dude is like an afterthought in AEW, comes over and he's NXT champion in like 2 months. 2 months. That's it. That's all it took. And there are going to be others. I'm telling you now. You mentioned Lucha Bros. It's very likely that this time next year, who the hell knows, but they're probably tag team champions.
Probably.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, they also are. It's supposedly said that they do not want to go to NXT. They want to go back to the main roster, which I don't blame them.
I am okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too, because I feel like they've done their time. You know, AEW, they could get Shane McMahon.
Well, he's on the slide too, ironically enough, still, so don't worry.
That's supposedly, I mean, it's just, is that going to do anything for you in the long term? It isn't.
No.
You're going to get another 50-something-year-old guy that's going to come on and pop a number, and it's like, does it matter?
Not only is he going to pop a number, he's going to pop both quads again.
Of course. You got Warner Brothers, they got their head up their ass because they lost fucking $11 billion in a quarter.
Yep.
And now you're trying to be like, oh, we're going to get a good media rights deal. Fuck you. You might get $200 million a year, which is great. But at the same time, that doesn't make a dent. That makes a dent your payroll. But still, at the same time, you're running buildings that it's like pissed into a fucking snowbank.
Yeah.
I mean, Chicago for All Out, which is 2 weeks after All In, because he learned his lesson from last year and not having it a week after fucking all in, because that was just a complete fucking disaster. Especially too when you're in Chicago and you got to go make an announcement that we just fired your hometown guy because you choked out one of my fucking idiot wrestlers that I have working for me.
Cornbread, damn it.
One of
Cornbread.
And then you make
wrestlers.
then
indeed.
you make him your mid card champion when no one likes him, and every time he comes out, people chant the guy that's one of the top draws right now in the other company that's kicking your ass.
Smoke.
And then you signed the Young Bucks to a contract where they can only work so many dates a year. So if they work more than those dates, they got to get paid more. So that's why they're not on TV a lot, because they're going past those dates that they make. Like, are these guys fucking Brock? Did you sign the Young Bucks to a Brock Lesnar deal? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Just completely asinine. Guys that have, and I like the Young Bucks. I do. I think they're one of the best tag teams ever. And I know people have an issue with that, but the fact is that they got wrestling t-shirts back in a Hot Topic when wrestling was cold as a, no one gave a shit about the industry. And here's these two indie guys from fucking California that somehow make enough sense with their merchandise. They make good stuff. They make fun stuff. And they get into Hot Topic when wrestling had no business being in Hot Topic. None. But they got them there with their merch. And you have to give that credit to them. And they work a entertaining style. Is it for everybody? No. But at the same time, I can't sit there and say that I don't like any of their matches, because I do like some of their matches. I don't like all of them, but I like some of them. So I like the Young Bucks. But you gave them a sweetheart deal, and it's like, but they haven't really drawn for you. Like, they're not. You see the numbers sometimes. The second they get on TV, people turn it off. They kind of got go away heat right now too, because again, they may have been involved in CM Punk going to fucking WWE, which needs to keep being reminded to you, because you got this guy out of a 7-year self-imposed exile. And then within 2 years, you chased him to the place and he left to begin with.
Cornbread, damn it. Cornbread.
Yep. It's crazy. It really is.
I mean, what the fuck is that?
And now he's trying to, and now he's trying to sell out a stadium in Texas. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Because I'm not booked.
If Bash in Berlin was in Texas, they would sell it out.
Oh, without question.
Tell you that.
Especially with that card. I mean, it's looking absolutely stacked.
Which is only 3 matches right now. You know, it's funny. So obviously we have 2 title shot matches. We have Gunther and
Randy.
And I'm already blanking. Yep, Randy Orton. Thank you. We have Cody and KO, and a non-title mixed tag match between Dirty Daddy Dom Mysterio, I guess is the best way to say that. Yeah. And Liv Morgan against Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest. So listen, there's more matches that are going to be announced between the end of this week and going into next week, obviously. But right now it's looking like a fun card at the very least. I'll say it that way.
Kind of a weird one to kind of be doing Randy Orton and Gunther this quickly, or Gunther, sorry. Gunther, same thing.
I think they have to get him away from Cody a little bit, though. I think that's the reason.
I think that's it too. They're trying to, because they're trying not to make it obvious that that's going to be a feud down the line. And again, this, because there's a lot of people probably shaking their heads right now of like, what is KO? And KO's even pointed it out. He's like, I shouldn't be qualified for this, but then he's just like, oh, so you're gonna give it to Roman? What's Roman and then he just went on that rant. He's just like, yeah, you're gonna get the title shot anyway. He's like, all right, fine, I'll take it.
Like, all right.
Yeah, it's a real interesting that KO is self-aware enough that he's pointing out that, yeah, he really hasn't qualified for this matchup, and neither really as Randy Orton anyways, because Orton's been kind of on a losing streak anyways. But at the same time, when you have certain talent, and I keep saying this, because it's the same thing with AJ Styles, when people are just like, well, who's AJ Styles that deserves to, because he's AJ Styles. Randy Orton has that. You can walk into the room and be like, well, I'm Randy Orton. Okay, you got a title shot. Kevin Owens, same thing. Both those guys. They're in a different category of they can challenge for any title at any time if they want to, because they've earned the right. Because of their backstory and especially KO, because KO, I always feel bad for him because it's like, he's excellent. He's also somebody that a lot of people put a lot of faith in as far as working with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially considering the fact of that he got Steve Austin to come out of a 19-year exile. And for that, it's like it automatically puts, if that's Steve Austin's last match, which he says it is, but that was before CM Punk arrived.
Yeah, true.
And I have to keep repeating that because it's like, that I feel like is now a distinct possibility to happening. I think now it's just, that was the matchup I think that people were wanting 10 years ago. I think Steve feels well enough, if he wanted to, he could do that match. And Punk also could work around it, I think as well, because when you're in there against certain talent, they can be able to make a guy who hasn't really been in this thing, which Kevin Owens has that ability. CM Punk also has that ability. But I think these are placeholder championship matches in a sense, because I don't see really anybody. Like, you can't see Randy Orton going into Berlin and beating Gunther after just winning the title, especially in the epic manner that he did. And the fact too that, and I think I've said this before, I probably said this last week, the only one I could conceivably see beating Gunther right now is Roman Reigns. So Randy Orton's not Roman Reigns. And again, Orton can take this match and lose, and it doesn't hurt him. Kevin Owens can lose against Cody Rhodes, and it doesn't hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know about the Randy Orton and Gunther match. I agree though that I think it should be somebody like Roman to beat him. With KO though, yeah, that feels like a filler match. It
does.
It's a segue to something else.
It's a segue to something else. It's like a placeholder. Because we don't know, and the fact is that the championship, the title path for Cody it's going to be treading water. Like, it's not treading water in my opinion. I think he's doing the best of what he has to work with, because, and I think he knew coming into this it was going to be a long kind of battle, because he's had to go up against the people that really haven't, so to say, earned title shots or really aren't ready, like Solo.
Because I'm not booked.
So it's been, I think, kind of.
It is. I don't want to cut you off, but I think it's just so tied to the Bloodline story in general.
Yes.
And one of the things they showed after SummerSlam and off the air, more or less, is Roman kind of mouthing something along the lines of like, hey, I'm coming for that eventually. And Cody extends 3 fingers and taps the belt. And it's very obviously a clear shot of Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, number 3. And that was not caught during the show. It came out after on social media. And I have to say, like, I just feel that in general, that gesture and just everything about his title run so far really has just felt like, when is Roman coming back? And when is Roman going to try for the title again? And I don't have an answer. I don't. And
I don't
maybe
either.
he doesn't. Maybe he goes to Raw, kind of like you're suggesting, and he challenges Gunther. And maybe doing so gets better feuds for Cody eventually, whether that be sometime next year or what, I don't know. It's just his storyline, I feel like, is so deeply ingrained with the bloodline story, and that feels why his championship reign feels, for at least a lot of people, a little bit lackluster.
I don't think it's lackluster. In my opinion, like,
Well,
'cause
a little bit. I'll say it that way. I don't feel it is either, but it's there a little bit.
I can understand why people think that, but to me, I think it's.
I can give you an example of why you feel the way you feel, and I could very simply say it this way. I feel like after Roman Reigns' long title reign, it's hard to measure up to that. And that's nothing against Cody Rhodes. Nothing against Cody. Because I think Cody actually is a great champion. I like the run, but there are parts of it that it's the whole thing of last year when he feuded with Brock Lesnar pretty much the whole summer. It was okay, but I felt like it kind of dragged.
Perfect example of this is, and I hate to use something from radio, but it has a lot to do with it, and it's also very, very true. And the statements and what we found out later. When Howard Stern left terrestrial radio, there were a lot of discussions with who is going to replace Howard at that spot. And I think the discussions were made to Opie and Anthony, and their feelings were, we don't want to be the guy after. We want to be, like, you never want to be the guy after the guy. And David Lee Roth came in, and David Lee Roth was an unmitigated disaster. One of the worst in radio history. Within 3 months, Opie and Anthony took over the morning drive slot of a lot of Stern's stations, which it did have a disastrous effect on modern rock radio, which we're still kind of dealing with now. But that, I think, is a true statement. You never really want to be the guy after the guy. Perfect example. When Bob Backlund was WWF champion, he lost the belt to the Iron Sheik.
Yep.
Iron Sheik then lost the belt to Hogan, and what Sheik was a transitional champion. Another perfect example was in 1994. Bret Hart lost the championship to Bob Backlund at Survivor Series. Yep. 3 days later at a house show, he lost the belt in 8 seconds to Diesel, Kevin Nash. In the wrestling business, it's the same thing. You sometimes never really want to be the guy after the guy, because you look at what they did with Hogan and Macho Man. Hogan lost the belt at the main event episode on NBC. He lost the rematch to Andre. Andre sold the belt to Ted DiBiase, which then Jack Tunney considered that a vacated title. They had the tournament at WrestleMania 4. Macho Man wins the tournament. And, yeah, everybody expected that business was maybe going to take a dip, but it didn't take a dip. It didn't, because Macho Man was just as popular as Hogan was. They got Hogan back, and then they put up with the Mega Powers, and then that went off and spun off into everything that happened at WrestleMania 5, where they did their biggest buy rate for WrestleMania ever up until that point. And that sometimes, so that is the look of a transitional champion. The same thing could be said in 84, because 84, Hogan was champion for 4 years. And that was the launching pad of everything of the national expansion. And Hogan, the first year, though, nobody really talks about 84. They talk about 85, they talk about 86, they talk about 87. 84 was also still kind of the wild, wild west, because he's facing Dr. D. David Schultz in Minnesota. They're in the Minnesota St. Paul Civic Center, the same buildings that Vern were headlining with those same two guys the year before, except it was for the WWF Championship. And Hogan, he was doing a lot of, like, it was a house show circuit at that point. Like, they had All American Wrestling, but they didn't get on NBC until 85. They didn't get NBC until after WrestleMania 1. I mean, there was the thing that got them was MTV. MTV was kind of the starting point where they had the War to Sell the Score, and then that turned into what WrestleMania became, and then 2 months later they got NBC. So I look at Cody's current championship year of this year, and I look at Hogan in 84, and it's the same trajectory, in my opinion. You're kind of just treading water a little bit, kind of, and John Cena went through the same thing, except Cena, that his 2006 is where things really kind of started to kind of hit. 05 was a little difficult because he was going up again. He was still kind of a new entity. He was over as fuck, but he was still kind of a new entity. And then he started to get the hardcores turning against him, and then the general WWE audience started to turn against him. Where that really hasn't happened yet with Cody. I don't expect that to happen. I just don't, because I think Cody's different from Cena, where Cena is more of a kind of has that, you don't know if what you're either his working shoes on, meaning some of his promos sometimes are just like, I don't believe a fucking word you're saying.
Who, Cena, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Where it's Cody, where it's like he has this way of talking to people. He's a great communicator, just like his dad.
Yep.
And I look at that, and I look at Hogan in 84, and I just those are the two comparisons I keep making. It's the same thing with Bret Hart in 92, 93 when he became champion.
Yeah.
Because he had nobody. His fucking first, I think, his first Saturday night's main event, he had to wrestle, I think it was Papa Shango.
Yep.
I think that was his as WWF champion. Can't get any worse than that.
Because I'm not booked.
It can only go up from here. And he won the title on a fucking house show. It was a Coliseum video exclusive in fucking Saskatoon. And I mean, Hogan won at the Garden. That was pretty huge. But Hogan, he was going up against like Big John Studd, him and Piper didn't touch until 85.
Yeah. No, I remember.
Like they didn't even cross paths until 85. And so that's kind of what's going on now with Cody. It's like there are other things on the show. There's a reason why that there's other prospects on the show other than just Cody Rhodes. Cody right now is just establishing himself as a Reign. He's doing great business. He's still one of their biggest merch sellers. It really doesn't matter what he does. It's like, it really doesn't matter because he's still one of the top merch sellers. He's a beacon of hope. Like, no one's turning against him. Are they maybe a little disappointed with his championship reign? I think the only people that are disappointed with the championship reign are the hardcores and, you know, people like us that kind of study this shit. And I get that. I get that. I understand that part of it. I get that. But again, my argument is, look at Hogan in 84. Look at Bret in 92 and 93. And Ric Flair even said it in his book. He says, you know, when I won the title in 81, 82, I wasn't who I felt like I all was. He's like, it wasn't until I beat Harley in Starrcade where it just like everything kind of, I finally understood it. Cody's doing everything, I think, right. I think when it comes to Mania season, I think he's going to be involved in something that people are just going to be like, fuck the last 9 months. Who gives a shit? Like, it's just.
You know what it is, too, is I'll say it this way, and this kind of goes along with at least the Cena portion. I feel like Cody is more engaging to watch than Cena ever was.
Oh, without question.
Like, I'll say it that way. Both, you know, the promos are believable because you feel like he is his character and the character is him. That's number one. Nothing against John Cena, but I never was engaged by his matches. He has good ones, don't get me wrong, but I was never blown away by anything he did. You know, Cody hitting a crossroads or especially a Cody cutter out of nowhere was more engaging to watch, or a disaster kick for that matter. Him putting on a Kimura on some people after his matches with Brock Lesnar was kind of engaging to watch. Him using a figure 4 on Roman, which has won his father multiple matches, was engaging to watch. And having the feud that he had last year going into Mania 40 was engaging to watch. I don't think we ever really had that with John Cena.
No.
At least not that I was actually engaged with. You could make the arguments about him against The Rock, but kind of the same thing. They don't really care anymore, especially at that time. I think your analogy with Hogan is pretty decent. The only thing I would kind of poke holes in is I felt more like that with Roman because of the long title reigns that I do with Cody. But I would make the argument, too, that it's still early with Cody. Yeah, it's been a few months since Mania and since he won, but at the same token, it's comparatively much earlier in his reign than I think a lot of people would have maybe expected. You know, go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Because you mentioned the Roman thing, I'm just like, you know, Roman. I mean, I remember his first feuds out of the gate was against Jey Usos, and I was just like, he's a career fucking tag team guy. Like, that one boggled me because I was just like, this is a career tag team guy. And even his first WrestleMania when he went up against Edge and Daniel Bryan, which, looking at things and how they played out now, that imagery of that victory, like that, in my opinion, is one of the greatest WrestleMania highlights in hindsight in history. The imagery of him stacking up Edge and Bryan Danielson,
I agree,
and pinning on them is an all-time WrestleMania moment in my mind because of the context of what would happen later on within the next 2 years.
Yep.
It just, to me, every time I look at it now, I just start smirking because it's just like, they actually ended a WrestleMania with those two fucking guys getting pinned. It's like, and that really going into that match, there was no story whatsoever. Except with the Edge stuff, of course, because Edge was trying to. But I felt like the Edge stuff with him, Edge, because I think they fought at Money in the Bank. It was another matchup that they had that was a lot more compelling. And then he had the John Cena match, but that there was a good 6 to 9 months that you can make an argument that Roman Reigns' 3.5 year reign really was kind of started off kind of like, what is that? It started off kind of weird, but then as time went on, as soon as he beat Cena at SummerSlam 2020, I think it was 2022.
I think so.
No, 2021. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
because it was the first one of people because he fought Brock the year later.
Yep.
It was from, and then of course, you can also make the argument that the Bloodline story really didn't start building up until Sami Zayn got involved,
100%.
which was the tail end of 2020. So there was all these kind of factors that have kind of gone on that, and they're highlights that you can point at and sit and say, okay, this is, but they all took time. And I think right now that's kind of where Cody's at. Because they got to build up new heels. They got to build up new faces to put them up. New, what I mean is faces, but not baby faces. They have to put them up against people that, and they're going to put them up against established names. It's the same thing that they did against John Cena in 2005. Because if you look at the guys that he went up against, it was Kurt Angle, it was Chris Jericho, it was JBL, Shawn Michaels, all these, that's what they do. They take the established guys who have been world champions in the past, and they're able to give the guy the rub. And I fully expect at WrestleMania, it's either going to be Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes up against him, even though I don't think it's going to be Roman Reigns yet. I still think that I don't know if they're going to do a 3-peat, 3 in a row.
I don't think they should.
They shouldn't. It should be a year off. I think Cody and Rock is.
Yeah.
Because this is what you can do, right?
Yeah.
And this is me kind of sitting here in my DeLorean of what you could do. So next year, WrestleMania, you have Roman beat Gunther to win the World Heavyweight Championship. And then you have Cody versus The Rock. Cody beats The Rock. Roman can hold the belts until the following year's WrestleMania and still have Roman and Rock that. You can still do it then.
Yeah.
So that way, 2 years now, you get The Rock in a top type of matchup and a main event type style, and you have now you're kind of I think Roman now is finally going to be able to be that top baby face again, but accept and be more of an accepted baby face and be able to now have, if he wanted to have a 2-year 3-year reign as champion, no one I think really bat an eye to it. And then especially too, Netflix is paying you so much money, and if they want Roman Reigns, give him Roman Reigns.
Yep.
And then you have Cody on SmackDown, and then you're good there.
I mean, listen.
Happy.
Yeah, I mean, you keep everybody happy, but I mean, at the same token, you have him as an established babyface, more or less, at this point. Whether you're talking about Roman or Cody, really, your top heel right now on SmackDown, ironically, is fucking Solo Sikoa.
I know.
It's so bad.
That's dog shit. Oh. And then at least on Raw, it's like you got Gunther, and then your number 2 would be, well, actually, I don't even know who the top heel is on Raw. I don't know if it's Gunther, if it's fucking Dominic Mysterio.
I mean, judging by crowd reaction, I would say it's Dominic.
Throw Liv Morgan in there too.
I mean,
they both got heat.
I mean, listen, it's funny that Cody is now off that show for months. That's still the better show.
Yeah.
Raw
Even
is-
though it's not Cody's fault, it's just the overall.
no, it's
product.
absolutely not Cody's fault. It's a 3-hour show, and they've stacked the card. It's really palpable because there's so many baby faces and so many
How the
heels that are on
fuck?
Raw.
That's how good of a booker Triple H is, because it's like, how are you making this 3-hour show watchable every week? How are you doing this? Like, that would be a number one question. I'm just sitting there like and trying to figure everything out. I'd be like, how are you making this 3-hour show tolerable and doing it for this long?
You know what? I'm sorry. Hold on. There's something that we didn't talk about yet, and
Yeah.
I want to get this out now before I forget, because otherwise, I will actually be mad at myself. There's one thing I hate about Raw. Do you know what that is? Before you
What is
start?
it?
Okay, there you go. I hate Pure Fusion Collective. I think that is the dumbest fucking name for a stable, woman or male stable, in the history of stables. I think that is the dumbest name I've ever heard. What's your stable name? Pure Fusion Collective. What the hell is a Pure Fusion Collective?
If anything, they should have borrowed from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. That's all I'm saying.
That would apply to Sonya Deville for sure.
Cornbread.
That would absolutely apply to Sonya Deville. I don't know about the other two, but it's possible. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, it's probably
Go
for the
watch it.
best.
Go
No,
watch it.
I would actually say it's probably for the best because we probably get fucking canceled for it. But also go watch it, yeah.
Shut up, bitches.
Come on. No one that watches this show is going to cancel me because they're just going to be like, I understand the reference and it's brilliant.
I'm actually shocked that I picked up the reference that quickly. Because I was like, Jay and Silent Bob.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, that was a great reference.
God, it's just. Well, did you hear the rumored name that they're going to name the new Judgment Day? It was going to be Street Trash.
They should have.
I mean,
Like-
what the fuck is that?
They should have.
By the way,
Like,
great
what is
movie.
that?
If anybody's ever watched it, like great 80s gore fest. Street Trash is fantastic. It's just it is the gore. It is one of the grossest movies I've ever seen, but I mean that in the best sense possible.
All right then.
Yes.
Okay. Learn something new every day. I didn't even know that was the name of a movie.
No, it's a cool 1980s movie. Billy and I have actually seen it, and we've kind of like it's a goddamn like just a I don't know how to describe it other than literally, yeah, it's pretty much its title. It really is Street Trash, but it's fantastic. But yeah, that was the rumored name for Judgment Day, and it's like I look at that name. Can you repeat that name again? Because it's just so fucking ridiculous. Like you gotta still.
Are we talking about Street Trash still, or are we talking
No.
about the women faction? Okay.
The women faction.
Pure Fusion Collective.
I mean, what the fuck is that? Like, what is that?
I mean, PFC, so maybe they're going with pretty fucking cool. No, you're not. Like,
Well, I mean, going back to your Jay and Silent Bob reference, maybe the C stands for something else.
that's true. Well, yeah, that's true. Now that I think about it,
Yep. Exactly.
like
No,
Pretty little-
what you just said, but to change the C to the other
Yes.
name, and then that's
I understand.
That's what
Yes.
Sonya Deville likes. What can I
No,
say? That just means she likes what I like.
I'll buy that for $1.
Oh man,
No, it's a terrible fucking name.
It
Like,
is.
It's just awful.
It's
like
awful.
it's just
Yeah.
it's one of those. It's like, did you give them the creative freedom, or is someone high? Like,
I remember watching it on Monday and texting you and Buran and being like, that is the dumbest name I've ever fucking heard.
Yeah, I remember
Thought of that. They should have been removed from the room. And whoever thought it was a good idea also should have been removed.
I just see that meme of that guy that he's in the board meeting and he says something stupid.
It gets thrown out the window.
Yeah,
he
just throws him out the fucking window. Where it's like I don't know if Vince would have fired the guy, or well, actually, Vince, this might have been something he come up with. Fuck, like this is because it does sound like something Vince would come up with. Oh, this is like what?
I just I think of like so many like shows or movies from like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s where they're talking about like cold fusion. I don't know if you remember the movie The Saint. It was about protecting a woman who knew how to do cold fusion. It's just like so our Pure Fusion Collective, like what the fuck is that? Like, are you creating fusion reactors here and just fucking you have a collective of people gonna sell that shit on the black market? Like, why? Of all the fucking names you could have thought of, Pure Fusion Collective. Like, what?
Well,
it sounds like the fucking
I don't know. I'm personally offended right now, considering the fact that you brought the movie up, The Saint. Like,
I mean, there are worse movies I could have brought up. Let's be real.
That's very true. I mean, there's worse Val Kilmer movies probably, but
that is true.
Cornbread, damn it, cornbread.
You know, the thing is, I want to like Val because he's been in some good shit.
Is this a holdover from like previous Batman conversations before you even go any further?
Because I'm not.
No, in retrospect, he wasn't even that bad.
Okay.
Like, because he kind of has the Ole Anderson complex right now with me. Like when Ole Anderson said to Cornette one time, he says, Cornette, I used to think you were the dumbest fuck in this business ever. But now that there's so many dumb fucks like in this industry, you're now like in the middle of the pack. That's kind of the way that I look at Val Kilmer as far as Batman is concerned. It's like, yeah, I used to think you're a dumb fuck, but now there are other people below you that make you look brilliant.
It's a small list still, though.
Yeah, it's still a small list, but at the same time, it's still a list, nonetheless. I don't know if I don't think I've watched Forever in at least 25 years.
Oh, I have. It's been a number of years, but it's less than.
So I don't know if maybe a rewatch and kind of me, because here's the thing.
So like, hold on before you even go into this, right? Just hear me out for 1 second, because I can tell you the reasoning, and I don't even think it's him. I think it's the way they wrote Two-Face and the Riddler, and how the overall writing skewed more towards like campiness than, we'll say, just using an analogy or a basis of argument, the Nolan trilogy, right? Like those are written in a very specific way. You can make the argument that 89 Keaton and whatever Returns, I don't remember the year, that was like 93.
92.
Okay, so it's close. Those two are also written somewhat in that darker kind of method. It's more superhero, it's less detective, which Nolan kind of combined, I would say, a little bit. Forever and what was it, Batman and Robin, I think it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Those two are written in that campy style. And that's exactly why I don't enjoy them as much. And
Batman,
I don't hate... No, you're fine. But the only other thing I'll say is this. I don't hate Tommy Lee Jones as Harvey Dent Two-Face.
I don't.
I'm not even going to say I hate Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I hate his portrayal of the Riddler. I don't think that's his fault, though. And again, it's the campiness of both characters for me. Two-Face should not be like a laughing fucking clown. Riddler is very like methodical. And that was not the case for either character. And that's why I don't like those films. It's less the fact of Val Kilmer as Batman or O'Donnell as fucking Robin.
Ugh.
It's really the writing and how they portray those characters more than anything else that makes me hate those movies.
Actually, to be honest, O'Donnell was not a bad Robin.
He wasn't, but in that one, I didn't
he
like
wasn't.
him. He was better in the next one.
I did like, I thought he was better in,
Batman and Robin. Yeah,
he was definitely better in Batman and Robin. But, yeah, I guess I kind of have to go back and watch forever. Batman and Robin. I don't know if
the movie's terrible.
I don't know if I can ever watch it again.
No. I could watch it for Alicia Silverstone being in the suit for about 20 minutes, and that's it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie right now. Like, that's the only reason I will ever watch that movie again.
I don't care what anyone says.
I'm sorry, Uma Thurman spandex as well. I'd watch that too.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, that's another reason. But I don't care what anybody says. I did not understand the hate that she got when she became Batgirl, and I still don't understand it now because we all saw Clueless. We all saw. I don't know if anybody saw Crush back in the early 90s. It was definitely an HBO Cinemax movie. Except for it wasn't to that extent, but it was on it. Like, it would be on in like the middle of the afternoon where you'd just be like, what the fuck am I? It was like Poison Ivy kind of deal. Of course, because Poison Ivy happened. And it's just like, now we need to make 50 mil films like Poison Ivy. So, you know, and she was in that, and of course she was in Clueless, and it's just like everybody needs to shut the fuck up. Like, you just need to shut up. Like, I never understood the hate, still don't. Because, you know, like, they're I'm not trying, because now when you talk about stuff like this, people get pissed. People get pissy. It's just like, how can you objectify? And it's like, look, this is
we grew up with bra and panty matches.
Yeah, we did. We grew up with bra and panty matches. And the fact is Alicia Silverstone between 1992 and 1998, she was hot. Like, she was cute. She was pretty. Like, she was the girl next door. She was definitely something that you wanted to go to fucking prom with. Okay? And that's the time of age that I grew up around, that time where it was just like you wanted to go out with these girls for fucking prom. And Alicia Silverstone was on the list. So was Nev Campbell. Like, so was Nev Campbell.
Denise Richards.
No. I understand. Of course, everybody saw fucking Wild Things.
Yep.
It's like, why did this movie make so much money? You know why?
That's why anybody says Nev Campbell, the immediate response is Denise Richards.
Or Rose McGowan, for that matter.
Or Rose McGowan. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it was, you know, that was, I took the Shannon Doherty death hard, too, recently.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, that was another girl who was just like, and especially after Mallrats. Fuck. It's like, because Mallrats is one of my favorite comedies of all time. She was fucking fantastic in the film. So it's like, she, as far as that universe is concerned, she's like one of my favorites. You know, but also another girl that you want to take the prom with. Yeah, she was a bitch, but I didn't care. You could have treated me like a complete piece of shit, but at the same time, I would have done everything because it would have just been like, it's fucking Shannon Doherty. Like, what am I going to do? Like, say no?
Shut up, bitches.
And I'm talking about just like picking up dog poo or something like that. I'm not talking about things, you know, other things people.
All right, yeah, all right.
Make,
I think that's enough left turns. For
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure it is.
And everybody's wondering, just like, where are we? What?
Yeah. How did we get here? How did we get here?
We're talking about high school crushes now from fucking movies and television. Yeah. Well, at least we're not talking about real life, which at that point, it's just like those memories are gone.
That's another show for another time that is not going to be on this platform.
It won't be on this platform
right now.
But it's just what I'm mentioning is I'm just saying that memory is gone. Like it's just completely out of my head. You the celebrities, yeah, like those, but you remember those, but you don't remember like the real life ones. So at least that's where my head's at.
On that note, I'll be interested to see what other matches they announce going into Bash in Berlin. I think so far it's a decent card. I'm curious what those other matches are going to look like.
Well, I heard CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in a strap match.
They've definitely hinted at that this week.
Yeah,
Definitely
that's
hinted at that. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, me too.
I heard cage match. I'm okay with a strap match instead.
Hey, you know what? They can put any stipulation down, and I think people would be. People are clamored for it. It's a top feud.
Yeah.
They're both being able to make the match bigger after the first one. I think the crowd's going to be hot for it. The crowd's still clamoring for everything. So I think on that end, everybody's going to be fine with it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I think the crowd is going to play a huge role. We saw these international dates this year just being packed, huge crowds, huge noises, a lot of reactions. So I hope that Germany is also ready to deliver in that regard as well. And that's all we can really hope for is a good show and some good matches.
Yep. And I think, again, we'll get that. Again, we're kind of in that lull period because, of course, we have.
Well, they announced Bad Blood, so.
Yeah, SummerSlam is still very early this summer where it's just like, because we're coming up on. To me, it was always the night before going back to school for some stupid reason.
Well, I think they moved it up to do Bash instead, and then.
SummerSlam was always on
that last 3-day weekend.
That last weekend where you're just like, oh no. And then I remember when they were on Mondays at one point, and that was even worse because school would begin that Tuesday. Oh God, it was the worst.
Yep.
But I do remember too. But then we had to worry about the Monday Night Wars anyways. So it was just like, well, I'm not going to bed till 11 anyways. So this sucks. That's every Monday. Oh, that was.
I remember that shit. Yeah. It's
trying to negotiate with our parents to be like, okay, all right, look, how about if I go to bed early this night, but this is the one night where I'm at least I'm in bed. My TV is on until this point. Okay. Like you're having to negotiate.
I'm glad that I kind of got into wrestling a little bit later, like near my teenage years, because it was a bit easier to stay up that late. But man, I remember just flipping back on the Monday Night Wars, especially then where I'm like, 10, 11, 12, 13, around that kind of age range, excuse me. And I just remember people walking into the family room just hating me. Like, pick one. No. I can't. I can't.
Luckily, I remember my parents had a black and white TV. And somehow we had like a cable. It was not a legal cable box by any means. But it's still
we've talked about that enough.
But it was that came a little bit later. This was still late. This is still, this is mid 90s. This is 95, 96. And I just remember my dad taking me to Radio Shack. I'm like, I have to get this part to get this attachment. He's like, all right, let's go to Radio Shack. And we were able to get it working, and I was able to watch. And the remote worked, so I was able.
So you probably had let me guess, you had like a splitter coming out of the cable box.
Yeah, it was ridiculous because TV.
I knew it.
It was the worst. I think it was the TV they may have taken out of one of the motorhomes, or one of the trailers that they had.
Okay.
This is how far back this is. I remember it having a dial, and it had the 3 dial system with that was my first TV, and I remember going back and forth and just watching, and it, especially with the NWO promos, it was just like, well, everything's black and white. This fucking thing to begin with. This
yes,
works.
it didn't even matter really.
It doesn't even matter. But that was how I watched like the first, at least 96, part of 97. I still remember I actually was grounded at one point where I had to be in bed by like a certain point. I think even really early. And there was one night that my mom was not home at all. And again, statute of limitations if mom and dad are listening. You can't get me on this.
If I remember correctly from this story, because I feel like you've said it before, your dad found out and asked you, and you're like, "Hey, mom's at home," and he's like, "Okay."
Yeah, I think I just was like, "Look, I'm gonna be." He's just like, "Are you grounded?" And I'm like, "Look it."
Isn't this the we can't know what we don't know story?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm like, look, all right, it's the money. I'm like, look, it's the NWO. It's hot. Like, you didn't see nothing. Because I think I was making popcorn or something, and he's just like,
the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, come on. Like, because I was so into it at that point, and he knew, because I was talking about it all the time. Like, I remember we were at church one time, and he got so mad. Instead of reading the hymns or something like that, I think it was reading an issue of PWI 500.
That's fantastic.
That's
fantastic.
He just kind of chucked it out of my hand.
Did you like put it in like the song book, or did you have like a handheld Bible?
I just snuck it in, and I just thought, and of course he's just like I'm at CCD at this point too, so and I think my mom might have been a CCD instructor as well. At that point.
God, yeah.
So it's just like, oh boy, and of course, because the halo's around her head. So like, of course, they had to make her a CCD teacher, which I was found hysterical. Yeah, but that was kind of where I was at that point. Like 96 was, I just remember that was like the year of the NWO. And we were watching the pay-per-views because I didn't pay for them all back then. I don't remember even paying for WrestleMania either. I think there was 3 years in a row I watched WrestleMania on the scrambled kind of, I could hear it, but I couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching on radio.
I remember that. Yeah.
Those days. And same thing, I think, with SummerSlam in 96. And then it was...
First one I remember watching live was probably 98, 14.
The first one that I watched live was...
Well, dude, you grew up in a wrestling house. It's a little bit different for you.
It was... the first one I watched... the first one I got into it was WrestleMania. It was Royal Rumble 91. And then that was when I vividly remember kind of everything. I think I got in the tail end of 90, but I don't remember everything kind of, the clouds kind of came apart during 91. That's where kind of I just have vivid memories of everything. Like, it's just I don't remember what people were wearing, but I do remember kind of the layout, sort of, and just little things that you notice, and just awesome memories from the show itself where you're just like, wow. And but I remember from May of 1997 through February of 2002, I did not miss a pay-per-view for either company. And again, statute of limitations.
Yeah.
You know, it's been you guys look, okay, you can't come after us now because it's just like, oh, you got us. Besides, it was the cable box you guys gave us. Like, you know, there would just happen to be a chip in there. We don't know how that happened. It just happened. But it was the box you guys gave us. So, I mean, there was a chip in there, I guess. I don't know what happened. It just happened. But I did not miss a pay-per-view for close to 5 years during one of the hottest periods in the industry. I do wish it kind of happened a year earlier, because I would have been able to see more of the NWO was happening, especially with the pay-per-views, especially too, where I felt like that everything was kind of perfectly booked. Because I tell everybody, I feel like that the first 3 to 4 months of the NWO was booked absolutely perfectly. It was around the time that the second Bischoff made everybody convert their contracts over. That was, I felt like, the first, like, okay, that's the big, you know, Buff Bagwell's, even though Buff Bagwell turned out to be a very good NWO member, in retrospect. But there were some guys who just like, all right, why is Big Bubba Rogers a member of the NWO?
You know what it was? I wouldn't say Buff Bagwell was bad, especially in the NWO.
No.
I don't think he was great.
No.
But the thing was that they kept adding and adding and adding and adding.
I know.
And adding to the point that it's just like,
there's 3 limos. It's like, why?
It's not even, no. You know what it was for me? I don't remember. There is not like a specific person that I could sit there and say, no. There's not a specific person that I could sit there and say, all right, I'm done. But I remember near the tail end when Dusty went to the NWO, I was like, all right, I think I'm done now. The son of a
that was so
like, come on.
That was so out of nowhere. I'm like,
it was.
Are you fucking kidding me?
It was like they had already grown to a point that I'm just like, all right, you have like half the roster at this point, if not more than half. And then just all of a sudden, Dusty's doing his dance and then dances out of the fucking shirt to reveal an NWO shirt underneath. And I'm just like, all right.
The one fucking guy in my life that I never thought would turn against, like, out of everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, out of everybody that has ever fucking done it, it's like him, not him. Like, it's just, there were a lot, but he was definitely one that I was just like, oh. Do you remember the Brett one? The Brett one was interesting because it's like and I'm talking about the night that he helped Hogan beat Savage.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And then he became, but he wasn't an NWO. He was like an associate. Like he wasn't a full-fledged member. It's just like, what the fuck am I watching? What is this?
You know, that was another one too, because it's like never in a million years, regardless of an associate member, a full member, or anything else, would have I imagined Bret Hart helping Hulk Hogan. God! That's the thing, right? Associate member, regular member, like whatever, man. The fact that he helped Hulk Hogan, period. I was like, what just happened?
I'm 14 years old and I'm watching that and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Pretty sure I threw like popcorn or something at the TV.
14! I am 14 and I'm like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at that. I'm like, this is absolute bullshit. I just saw the guy fuck him over 4 years ago and now he's helping him?
Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, why? Of all the things that could have ever happened on the planet, that is not something I would have ever seen
Oh my God, I could not believe. That might be one of the most flabbergasting things I've ever seen in the history of the wrestling industry. Even Brett going through with it. It's like, why are you? No, you're not supposed to help him at all. Holy shit.
Yeah.
There's got to be more common sense to that. Of all,
One would think. One would fucking think. Oh, man.
Like, that had to have been Hogan's idea too, because it's like,
of course it was.
Of course it was. Brett's gonna help me. What?
I'm sure Brett's sitting in the room like, the fuck I am. Creative control, brother. Damn it. Damn you and your creative control, Hulk.
You know, I would have had that in Montreal.
Yeah.
We know about Montreal. Yeah.
You know what, Hulk? I'll help you. But you know who I won't help? Is that bastard Bill Goldberg.
It really has come down to, it's just...
Who is the greater evil, Bill Goldberg or Hulk Hogan?
I think for him, it's Goldberg.
For him, it's definitely Bill Goldberg.
It's definitely Goldberg.
He still talks shit. I mean, fuck.
It's like, you know, the thing about Hogan is, it's like he drew more than like 3 months. You know.
Christ. Oh man.
Okay, it was a little longer than that. Okay. All right. It was 6, but
yeah,
still.
I was gonna say 6, yeah. Oh man.
Oh God, he's the fucking worst. It's like can you imagine? Can you just imagine how much hate mail he probably gets for the Bret Hart stuff? And if he did that to the Undertaker, he would have to hire like Secret Service level like security. Like, holy shit. The Undertaker.
Why are you telling everybody what I do on my off time? Sending hate mail to Bill Goldberg.
Ooh, man.
I fucking hate you piece of shit.
I don't know if you remember this, but I know the audience wouldn't anyways, but Boston has a couple sports channel or on the radio, sports radio, whatever you call it. And one of them is Sports Hub. Sports Hub at the time was still kind of somewhat new. And they used to have this morning show, Toucher and Rich. Fred Toucher, Rich Schertenlieb. Schertenlieb has gone to a different station in the Boston area. Fred Toucher's still there. He now does it with this dude, Hardy. I digress. When the show kind of first started, they interviewed Rick Pitino, former basketball coach of the Boston Celtics, also a pretty renowned
of the team as well.
I forgot he was president, but you're right.
Yeah.
He also was a coach in college basketball as well. So the interview kind of went like this, and I'm sure this would happen if we talked about Bill Goldberg and Bret Hart. But basically, he comes on, Fred introduces him, and then Fred Toucher goes, "You suck, you ruined the Celtics," and then hung up on him.
Like
that was the interview. And I can only imagine that would be the case here too. Just saying.
It would be. It would not end well. I think we could. There's probably people out here that were just, oh, you guys are always trying to score interviews and that type of stuff. Number one, I don't think Goldberg would ever talk to us. He just listened to our past shows and he'd be like, they don't like me. They don't like that.
I'm also not trying to get Bill Goldberg. I'd have to sit down.
No, it's like, no, it's just, there's certain, yes, I don't expect him to ever be on this program anyways, just because number one, we wouldn't meet his price. And number two, it's just, it wouldn't exactly be friendly territory, especially too, a lot of the friends that we have here on this program are up in Canada, especially everybody that works for, good Lord, they probably are going to hate me, but everybody that we've worked with, up with Cobra Kai, we work with Michael Richard Blaze, we've worked with Taryn from accounting, Tara Zepp. There's a whole bunch of talent that we've interviewed here, all from Canada, and they all would agree that Goldberg sucks. I think that's what every time I talk to a Canadian wrestler, I'm just like, do you love Bret Hart? The usual answer is, yeah, he's a fantastic human being. And then I'm like, what do you think of Bill Goldberg? And they all go, he fucking sucks. Like, it's a constant narrative up there because I am half Canadian, from our Canadian brotherhood that just Canadian brotherhood. We all stand together, and our love for Bret Hart and our hatred for Bill fucking Goldberg.
Goldberg
Sucks.
Goldberg
Sucks. Oh my God.
Yeah, I got nothing else. I don't even know what else to say about it.
I don't know what else to say. Do we have anything else to discuss in this week's program?
I feel like it's been a slow week, all things considered.
It has. We did want
passing
to
passing of Kevin Sullivan.
We did want to touch on that. We talk about. I should have segued this better, just because even though when we're talking about death, really, there's no real great way to segue.
No, there is not.
Especially someone that I feel like is an underrated, under kind of appreciated talent. Not only as far as gimmick wise, I feel like that we wouldn't have the Undertaker without what Kevin Sullivan did in Florida in the 70s. We would not have the dark kind of aspects of the industry. He took a complete risk by going with saying, I'm going to do what Charlie's Manson did, but I'm going to do it in professional wrestling, and created so much great talent and was able to get everybody over that he possibly could. And I think he's absolutely fantastic. And he's done tremendous booking wise as well. Being able to book the early days of the NWO. I mean, the story that he was able to tell as well. The negotiations I wouldn't say negotiations, but the convincing of Hulk Hogan to turn heel was an extraordinary process. Even though it was Hogan's idea, he went to Bischoff and just saying that you're looking at your third guy. He was still being talked out of it by certain people around him. Kevin Sullivan actually had him stay overnight at his house the night before the pay-per-view at Bash on the Beach. And he's just like, I'm giving you the guest room. He had his lawyers / agent sleep on his guest. Like he had a sofa bed. He had him sleep on that all night. Because that guy was still trying to convince Hulk not to do this up until the 11th hour. It was literally, Hogan did not show up to the building until he was ready to go out within like 10 minutes. And because he wanted to keep it, number one, quiet. But Kevin Sullivan knew, he's like, if it gets done, it's going to change everything. And that's exactly what happened. He booked that, like I said earlier, I said for the first 3 or 4 months, there were really no missteps as far as the NWO was concerned. As far as the formation was concerned, everything. Even you can go with probably the first 6 months, going back from May 1996 through, the beginning to tail end of November of 96. It was done to absolute and utter perfection. And for that, he deserves his absolute respect, because if he didn't do that, if he didn't do that, we're in the position that we are now. We would not be in the position of where I think anybody would be as fandom is concerned, because he was the driving factor behind WCW popping off, which became one of the driving factors for the Monday Night War in the long run to also start popping off. So it's a absolute credit that he has to be able to get. And he's always somebody that, because everybody gives Bischoff the credit. Bischoff, I feel like he was kind of more the Robert Kraft. Kevin Sullivan, I feel like, was the Bill Belichick. He was the guy that needed to be able to put the right guys in the right position and be able to guide them in a sense. And he was probably the perfect heel booker. And when you're booking a monster heel stable, there's no one else you could possibly get better. He was involved, though, in the Dungeon of Doom, which needs to be said, but also forgotten. I'll forgive him for that. Even though that Doomsday Cage match, oh, good Lord.
I mean, what the fuck is that?
It needs to be seen to believe, the Doomsday Cage match. But it needs to be seen under the right circumstances. Maybe if you're on mushrooms, or on like 30-gram edibles, or moon rock, like those, they have to be under the right circumstances for you to be able to enjoy that matchup, or not even to enjoy it, because you'll never enjoy that match, but just kind of, just. You might hate the wrestling business after it, but also at the same time, you might think it's one of the funniest things. It's something to behold. If you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest you do. Just don't do it sober. But Kevin Sullivan, from one Bostonian to another, even the Red Sox paid tribute to him, which I was surprised I saw, which I was like, wow, that's deep.
He's a long-time fan, apparently. So
long time. Always talked about the Red Sox. Always talked about the Bruins, Celtics, and of course the Patriots. So I feel like the impact that the guy had on the industry, also being local, truly one of a kind. I feel like in the industry, a lot of people thought he was really a creative genius. Kevin Nash had some really kind words to say about him. I'm so sure. Cornette's already posted some stuff. I'll be checking that out over the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, real loss to the industry. I know he's been suffering with health problems, so sometimes it could be also a blessing. Even though talking about death, it's one of those deals too of you hate it, especially around these circles lately.
We've talked about it way too much lately this year, especially.
But it needed to be mentioned. I feel like that Kevin Sullivan, didn't make that much of an impact in the industry. So you've been listening to Pro Wrestling World Talks. Again, look for the scroll coming up on our exclusive content for Spotify and also Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, to be sure. Of course, don't feel like that, though, that you're unappreciated or unwanted here on Diamond Podcasting Productions, because this show obviously cross brands, but we're going to have more exclusive content on the way as well. We're going to try to serve both parties, but you also could enjoy both platforms, and you could listen to it even while you're sleeping. Try to get these numbers up, folks. Like, throw it on the background and then laugh about it later, or just think that Dan is just a complete lunatic and you're wanting to watch the downfall of myself. And if you want to, fine. But I don't think it's going to be a downfall. I think it's going to be up, baby.
My downfall will be covered on another show, so don't worry.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's coming eventually. Don't worry. We'll talk about the downfall.
The other show where it's going to be kind of like Dr. Katz, except I'm going to be playing I'm going to be playing the role of Dr. Katz, and you're going to be the patient. where I'm just going to be like, what is up, buddy?
Shut up, bitches.
I feel like more or less your reaction is going to be more like, Jesus, fuck.
Yes.
More than anything else. But, you know, that's a bad word, so sorry.
I agree 100%.
That's a
All right.
bad
Well,
word.
that is it from us this week, folks. You've been listening to PWW Talks. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week for our regular show. Again, check out the other channels and the other for exclusive content there. And we will see you all real soon. Take care, everybody.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.